The fact that we've only just been able to, at some festivals, get pill testing, it's like, that is a fucking no-brainer to me. Of course.
Whereas my thing is, why are we having these bloody festivals? Because that's what everyone does there. And then they go and arrest people and people overdose and die.
We're going to change you today.
Should drugs be legalised?
Yes! Sorry.
No. There has been some families that have been absolutely torn apart, you know, and, you know, I'm sitting here having a drug right now. So if you legalise it, it becomes normalised, and then it's not one of those taboo. It's like a child, if you say you can't have that lolly, then they're going to want to have it. Part of me goes, well, if you legalise it, then does that mean that people aren't...
You take away that forbidden fruit,
right.
And you...
But if you do legalise it, then those who... I mean, I've never touched it because I have a strong moral of it's illegal. So
Cheers.
Whereas if it was legalised and I had it, I'm addictive, I probably wouldn't be sitting here. Like, I don't know where that would end up. Does that make sense? So there's...
But you just acknowledge that you're having a drug.
Because I was brought up around it, and there's another issue.
I would say, yes, there is sections that need to be legal, especially with people with cancer. It helps with people with disability. Marijuana, for example, I think it should be. It's a natural, it's just whatever else is made up with it behind the back screen that makes it, you know, then and I think a lot of people are scared of the unknown. Yes, I've got family members who are absolutely drug fucked, I'll say that. And I've seen them and I don't communicate with them because they just do my head in because I'm like, mate. But yeah, if it was legal, but that's like with anything. So again, it's, you know, alcohol in Indigenous communities, you know, that is wrong. Cigarettes in, you know, so where does it stop? Cigarettes is, you know, legal, you know, why? And for me to see the Indigenous community, it affects that, to me, no. But then I see people, my friends who's got cancer, where it does help them.
So does it come down to that person at the...
You just need to make it legal. You need to take the thing away from it. And the fact that we've only just been able to, at some festivals, get pill testing, it's like, that is a fucking no-brainer to me. Of course.
Whereas my thing is, why are we having these bloody festivals? Because that's what everyone does there. And then they go and arrest people and people overdose and die.
Alcohol has done more damage to our community and the people that we love than those drugs have ever
What we
done.
know is that the law doesn't stop anyone from getting drugs. So you talk to anyone, what it means is that we don't know what drugs they're getting, we don't know who they're getting them from, and if they need help, it's really hard to seek help because it's a criminal offence and the stigma of that. So if we were to legalise and regulate, you know, I can tell you now that the drug dealer out there is not asking for ID before they provide a substance or vaccination certificates. They are not testing the product that they're supplying. They are not checking for moulds and pesticides and insecticides.
That's one positive, I must say, is at least I'm assuming you would know what's in it, or whatever you're taking.
What about your oxy that you can get from...
I don't know, I'm not into drugs.
More people die. Yeah.
So I think medicinal marijuana, psilocybin, MDMA should absolutely be put within a therapeutic. That's the medicinal. Then I go, alcohol absolutely kills more people than any other drug in the whole of the world. That's just the reality. But I'm also with you around, let's get smarter about how we keep people safe so that we can actually start to address the real issues which push it underground. So prohibition's a classic. Like, what did everyone do? They went and hid out in the basement and drank. So human nature, it's human nature.
You know, like thinking about it,
We're going to change you today.
Not couple of pills. And we're going to have a fucking blinder.
We're going to see if we can find someone who can give us a litmus, a testing kit.
I think the biggest issue in everything is mental health, because I feel like people reach for these things.
That's right.
Because they're trying to escape something. And I think, and mental health is becoming, more and more talked about. Sometimes it's talked about too much and it's being used as an excuse. I've got mental health, so you can't ask me any questions. That's kind of the pendulum swinging, and we've got to find that balance. But I think the more conversation we have about that, it might stop. Because I know in lockdown, I drank more alcohol than I've ever drunk in my life, and I'm fitness, right? Everyone has, but then as you fixed your mental health and you worked on things, then that became less of a clutch, So maybe legalizing it won't be such an issue, but I think we need to address the.
I think it's about the regulation, and I think what we know is that the laws have not stopped anyone from using drugs. Yep. Now, why people use drugs is a whole range of things, and for 99% of people who use illicit substances, nothing bad happens. Mm-hmm. For a small percentage who bad things do happen, and we look at the supervised injecting centre where people who have got a real issue with opioids go, 99% of them have a history of trauma, have histories of mental health, have histories of disadvantage. So if we went away from the focus of criminalising and locking people up, we started to look at those with problematic behaviour and those that are harming themselves and others, and looked at how we could help them, rather than the kid taking a tablet at a festival and having a great time with their friends, or some magic mushrooms and having a brilliant time, and then aging out of it.
I do worry though, so I don't disagree with decriminalising. I have sort of views that I worry about it, but it needs to be very controlled. I worry about that also again in that teenage group, because a kid taking a pill at a rave party can actually do some things that they wouldn't do because they perhaps don't exercise the same levels of self-control. And that sort of thing can be very problematic, right? Because that stays with you for life. And so for example, there's a number of children, well, young adults, young boys that will be incarcerated as a result of trying things, whereas if they were trying them in their 30s, they would probably be much more considered and safer doing that. So we have to have the right people around them.
Lose their shit back here are really going to wait till their 30s.
No, they won't. They won't. But I would also say that the reality is that anybody can get access to alcohol. So if you as soon as you start to free up and liberate something and make it easier to get access to, that my concern is, how do you really regulate it going to the places that it shouldn't go to?
And I think you look at the Netherlands, where cannabis has been cannabis has been sold in a regulated fashion for decades. They have the lowest use of cannabis in the EU.
But that's not a very fun drug, right?
That doesn't that lead on to
Australia has the highest use of cannabis in the world. We also have the highest use of MDMA in the world. Like, go us.
We get good shit in Australia.
I wish we did, but we don't. We actually get shit. Sorry, we're not supposed to swear.
Well, I know my father actually sat with all my friends and around a table and said, right, this is marijuana, we're going to have a cigarette, we'll have a joint. And that way he could experience, so for me it's a Chinese lesson, I suppose. So they all smoked, and that way he could see what they did, and he did the same. And so for me, a lot of things is, until you test it yourself, then I'll be the judge of that. So I still follow that in a lot of things that I do.
I love your dad.
I don't judge. Well, I do. My husband says I'm a big judger. I'm more of a coach, I think. So yes.
The only reason I didn't do drugs when I was at school, because it was all around me, is because my mum had died and I thought she could see me, but also it wasn't legal. So I'm safe.
And that's, and I think that you're the first person I've ever heard say that I didn't use drugs because they were illegal. Everybody else, I've never heard that before, mainly because I thought my mum was would see me was more the predominant one. But it's education. Like, you actually don't want young people using substances too young. That is a precursor to you having a problematic use, but B, your brain's developing. Rather than have this, just say no and one hit and you'll be in the gutter. Let's have that conversation about the developing cortex and those conversations.
I get that, right? But I keep coming back to, I've got a 13-year-old and a 20-year-old boy and a 20-year-old stepdaughter, right? I don't know how many of you have had a boy that's gone through that journey, but they are lost to you for a while, right? They are lost to you. So we could be sitting there having this education, all they're hearing right now is from their friends, right? And so, the real challenge I have and why I worry about, I don't worry about decriminalising, I worry about access, right? And because I know that he was drinking way before I thought he was, and I'm a pretty liberated mum. He was drinking way before I thought he was. It's very problematic, and if he could get access that easily to alcohol, decriminalised drugs, he would have.
But I feel like people are going to do that regardless. If you're that person, I remember, I was passed out in a field when I was 13 from being drunk, and I've had my own challenges with that over the years. And yes, they're drugs. Accessibility to drugs is not a thing. You can get them anywhere, anytime. It's like 1-3 cabs, baby, okay? And so it's not, they come now. They send out text messages now saying, we've got a special on for the weekend.
What the research tells us is that when kids are engaged, when they're engaged with school, when they're engaged with sport, when they're engaged with other activities, they're not going to have problematic drug use.